Офісу з просування експорту, а також новими колегами і партнерами в співпраці з Агентством кредитування експорту. Цей захід проводиться під егідою за підтримки Посольства Словенії в Україні. І як ми попереджали, шановні друзі, зараз ми переходимо на англійську мову. Now we switch to English, as this webinar will be held in English in order to make it easy and convenient for everyone, including our Slovenian guests, speakers. So we are launching today an event that is of primary importance both to Ukrainian businesses, export-oriented business, and their Slovenian peers, potential partners. Today we will be talking about about the Slovenian experience to support financially exporters abroad. Export and insurance for export, credit and insurance support for export operations in Europe and globally. So without too much ado, I would like to introduce our excellent panels of speakers. In line with our program, we will have a welcoming statement to the participants from His Excellency Ambassador Tomasz Mencin, Ambassador of Slovenia to Ukraine, to be followed by Ms. Tatiana Miskova, Director for Export Promotion Office, and a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia, Ambassador Istok Grmek, Director General for Economic and Public Diplomacy. And then the cherry on the cake, the presentations of top executives from the SID Bank. SID Bank is the leading Slovenian bank who is very active in financial support for export promotion in Slovenia. So without too much ado, I am very honored to pass the floor to Ambassador. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear colleagues, partners and friends. It is my pleasure today to open and welcome participants of today's virtual online meeting between Slovenian and Ukrainian experts in the area of business financing and crediting. I'm very grateful that my Slovenian colleagues from the SID Bank, which is a promotional development and export bank owned by the Republic of Slovenia, kindly accepted our invitation and agreed to join the event to share their activities and experience working with companies, as well as to inform us on available instruments and mechanisms for supporting business. I'm very pleased to note about established friendly bilateral relations and ties between Slovenia and Ukraine and ongoing political and economic dialogue. Slovenia has been a great supporter of reforms in Ukraine and its EU integration process, and we express readiness to provide any further support needed in implementation of the necessary reforms agenda. In these days, the companies and entrepreneurs face difficult times, and the government support for them is crucial. I'm convinced that such institutions as export credit agencies of both countries should play one of the vital roles in supporting and maintaining business cooperation between our two countries. Therefore, today's meeting on the topic ensuring or crediting experience of SID Bank in providing support for business will help to seek the new forums and solutions of helping business to find practical solutions to the existing challenges. I'm happy to welcome today my colleague, Ambassador Istok Grmek, Director General for Economic Diplomacy from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who will join our discussion. And of course, I would like to thank you, Nazar Bubitsky, and your team for excellent coordination and cooperation in organization of this event. I do believe that the event will serve as a new platform for new ideas and provide a basis for strengthening economic cooperation and business opportunities between companies from Slovenia and Ukraine. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We are all very much encouraged by your words, by the words of support. And now I would like to pass the floor to Tanya Miskova, Director, Export Promotion Office of Ukraine. Tanya, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm very much grateful to the Ukrainian Business and Trade Associations and all our partners from Slovenia and from Ukraine for bringing this topic on the agenda today, because we all know that according to the surveys of the Export Promotion Office and other organizations, access to the affordable finances is one of the top 5 priorities and obstacles among the business on the way to open new markets and improving their businesses and sell abroad, etc., etc. But now, under the conditions of the impact of COVID-19 and at the condition we have where we have limited resources and conditions in terms of the reaching out and searching for the new partners abroad, there is another issue and topic which has arisen, and this is the matter of the trust to the foreign partners and the trust of the foreign partners to Ukrainian partners. So we have another need and topic to discuss is the guarantees and the hedging of the risks of the Ukrainian companies, exporters, and foreign importers. That's why the topic of the insurance and crediting is very much important now, is on the agenda, and it's very actual. And I'm very grateful actually for the representatives of the SID bank for their inputs, which they will give us today. And in terms of this limited resources from Ukrainian, like state budgeting, I would like also to know that the efforts which has been made by the Export Credit Agency now, for now is significant, because they really started to do and implement some instruments for the Ukrainian exporters to making their lives more easier. That's why I would like to encourage everyone to take active participation in these conversations, and not only to listen, but maybe to come up with some ideas and solutions at the conditions of the restricted resources and restricted conditions we have now in Ukraine and all over the world. And I hope that this discussion will result in some practical new ideas and new instruments and new solutions also from the private sector, which I believe, have today among our participants. So we could enhance each other and open the doors for the mutual cooperation, not only from between Ukraine and Slovenia, but to the other world. Thank you very much, and wish you a fruitful conversation. Thank you, Nazar.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Couldn't agree more. Limited financial resources is something that really holds back trade ties between Ukraine and its peers in Europe, particularly Slovenia. So we are hungry for ways and knowledge how to unlock our potential. And now I would like to pass the floor to our next distinguished speaker, Ambassador Isto Grmek. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear Chair, Mr. Bobicki. Dobar dan from Ljubljana. Best wishes and best regards to Kyiv. I would like also to greet my colleagues on the panel, my dear colleague, Ambassador Tomaž Mencin, also to our economic counselor, his teammate, Mr. Taras Pritura. And also, I'm already using these starting sentences to make some marketing for our embassy in Kyiv, because they are there definitely to clarify the details, and they're always available for some additional contacts and additional informations. I'm also greeting Director Miškova, representatives, our colleagues from the Slovenian SID bank, colleagues from the Export Credit Agency of Ukraine, and Ukr Exim Bank, and to all the participants on this webinar today. As I was introduced, with my team, we are in charge of economic diplomacy at the Foreign Office, and in the Slovenian government, it's the Foreign Office which is taking care about the network of Slovenian economic counselors and to coordinate the interests of Slovenia in the domain of the economic diplomacy. of course, together with the other national stakeholders in the area of internationalization of the Slovenian economy. And what I would like to stress in this speech that it is my pleasure to, of course, to participate, and especially I would like to stress this is a second virtual event in a month with the Ukrainian and Slovenian colleagues. Both events, today's and the one a week ago, demonstrate the friendship and open relations between the two countries, as well as close cooperation in the field of economy that it's established and it's deepening from year to year. Of course, we have to stress the reality of the COVID-19 pandemics, which puts our economies and our daily lives in ordinary routines under important test. The pandemic also strongly affected our bilateral economic relations and our economies. And the distinctly Slovenian export-driven economy is in this domain with no exception. Economic growth in Slovenia in last year was 2.4%, and as I can illustrate that in the first half of 2020, GDP fell almost 8% compared to the last year. As we are facing right now the second wave of the pandemic, I hope that we already reached the peak. We as well hope and believe that this difficult chapter will be behind us soon as possible. Until then, we must all work to keep our economy alive, well and fully integrated into our common European and also into the global economy. Allow me to use this opportunity also to inform you about the activities and efforts of the Slovenian government with regard to the COVID-19 situation. Our government declared the state of epidemic on March 12th this year, and right now we are battling, like I said, with the second wave of the pandemic. The government has ever since adopted unprecedented measures to mitigate the negative effects of the pandemic on our economy. Altogether, well, if somebody is, I hope that somebody is interested about that, I will just present that 5 stimulus packages were adopted until now. The first intervention package intended to boost a positive impact on the Slovenian economy. And it was adopted and implemented soon after the epidemic was declared. It included deferral of loan repayments, extended deadlines for submission of tax returns for corporate income tax, and possibility of partial salary compensation for temporarily laid off workers, and deferral of social contribution payments. Intervention acts packages followed and included a number of measures worth of 5 billion euros. And these measures were covered in 5 packages which included the following. Reimbursement of salaries for temporary laid off workers, exemption from paying pensions and disability insurance for employees, monthly basic income, exemption from paying also social security contributions for self-employed, guarantees for bank loans to enterprises in the amount of 2 billion euros. Also, we have a unique system of tourist vouchers. Every Slovenian citizen got a voucher which can be used to keep the touristic sector of the country alive. Favorable loans for improving the liquidity of enterprises, and so on. If somebody is interested in all these packages, we have precise infos also at our embassy in Kiev. Well, additional measures, grants are being prepared and will be offered this year for digital transformation of the SMEs by the Slovenia Enterprise Fund, for small and medium-sized enterprises in tourism sector by our promotion agency called Spirit Slovenia, for SMEs in the field of internationalization. Well, as I said at the outset, pandemic puts us all under test, and yet our economies and contacts cannot and should not be stopped. With that, I would like to conclude my statement, and I will also stress that we definitely have to prepare for the day after the pandemic, and if we'll be successful enough, our bilateral cooperation will be even stronger as it was before the pandemic. Thanks to everybody, for the organizers to invite us, and with pleasure we will follow the further presentations and the discussions at the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now we move to the next segment of our event, the actual presentation of the experience of the Slovenian SID Bank. And I would like to emphasize that this will not be just a presentation. It will be a lively discussion where we also would like to hear the comments, the reaction, the view of our Ukrainian colleagues, specifically the export credit agency and the Ukrainian export-import bank, Bank. So with this, I would like to invite representatives of the SID Bank, Ms. Sasha Keleman. And before I give the floor, I just say a few words about what struck me in terms of figures of economic success of Slovenia, as far as we talk, for instance, about economic development, most importantly, foreign trade. Just, I think, for our Ukrainian audience, it will be of particular interest and importance. Slovenia is relatively not one of the biggest European member states, with a beautiful scenery, with a beautiful, let's say, landscape, but it also may look very beautiful from the point of view of business climate, economy, and most importantly, export performance. Slovenia features as number 8 on the Global Peace Index, number 1 according to the rankings of World Economic Forum on macroeconomic stability, and as a 32 out of 63 on World Digital Competitiveness. But what really struck me when I was preparing myself for this event is that when we look at the GDP of the country and the share of exports, we see that 89% of GDP generated in Slovenia has been generated by export revenue. So it means that Slovenia is one of the export tigers, as we used to call this highly successful performing countries around the world, specifically in Europe. And most importantly, Slovenia exports generate positive balance of trade, which accounts for 5.6% of GDP. So basically, we are looking at Slovenia as a success story in terms of export. So I'm sure that SID Bank and the export financial support system plays quite a good role in this success story. So we are looking forward to hear from SID Bank representatives how they made it possible. And I'm looking forward also to a discussion with their peers, our distinguished colleagues from Bank and from export credit agencies. So without too much ado, I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Sasha Keleman. You have the floor.
Thank you. Доброго шановні превосходительства, колеги, пані Тепанове, і ласкаво просимо від SID Banka. So let me now switch to English, and thank you once again for the opportunity to address you all. My name is Sasha Keleman, and together with colleague Ms. Cristina Fortuna, we'll deliver this presentation of SID Banka and try to present as much as possible about SID Banka in the next couple of minutes. So I guess the technique will allow us that we share our presentation that we forwarded prior to the event. Let me just give a few introductory words regarding SID Banka. So we were established back in 1992, and throughout the years, transformed ourselves to a real export and development bank. Remained in the ownership of Republic of Slovenia. Focused our business activities in the area of so-called market gaps and failures, which I will explain a little bit later. Increase the number of employees as well as the balance sheet, and obtain the current the credit rating, which is the best among the Slovenian banks. So, in a nutshell, our mission, strategy, and business model is focused to public mandates given by the law. We do business in our own account and on the state account. And as previously mentioned, we focus our activities in so-called market gaps, which we complement together with our other stakeholders, financial institutions, companies, and public agencies and funds. So our mission is to complement long-term financial services, to promote economic competitiveness, and create new jobs for the sustainable development of Slovenia. Our areas of activities include financing and insurance, and both of them are focused, financing a little bit more on several areas of priority, so-called RDI, SMEs, infrastructure, energy efficiency, environmental investments, employment, housing, and so on. And in the area of insurance against non-marketable risks, we provide these services on behalf of the state as an ECA, so export credit agency, in forms of investments, ensuring investments and exports abroad, also in respective activities and areas. If we take a look of what we did, and I'm also impressed by your words, Mr. Kubicki, how our activities are seen abroad. It is true that, of course, being a relatively small economy, we accomplished very great results. So just for flavor, back in 2019, together with our whole range of activities and services, we enabled 2.4 billion of sales of Slovenian companies, enabled 1 billion of additional GDP, which resulted in around 6,000 new employments, 1 billion of additional exports, and this was all enabled by approximately a little bit less than 3 billion euros of different services of SID Banka Group. If we take a look now more in detail of what SID Banka services are, so we do our activities mainly through on lending, through commercial banks or in cooperation with them, but also and more increasingly through direct financing, which is becoming more and more important in the times of crisis. I will touch this area a little bit further on. And also in the area of state account activities, which I mentioned before. So non-marketable risk insurance, then fund of funds, which is innovative use of European cohesion funds, which through financial engineering allows us to, rather than use the so-called grants, once we use them as a financial engineering. That means revolving principle and multiplication. And then through this, we enable these figures which I presented before, and other services as well. So if we take a look now more in detail what financing facilities provided by SID Bank are, these are loans, then project financing, purchase of receivables, risk participation, mezzanine financing, subordinated loans, and other types of facilities which are designed in order to facilitate the distribution of our funds through commercial banks which act as on-lending banks. The main characteristics, so what is the distinction between a development bank and commercial banks is that, of course, by the fact that our funding is guaranteed by the Republic of Slovenia, we are thus capable of providing long-term funds, which is also in terms of pricing more favorable. Then through various instruments to apply less collateral requirements than it would be ordinary. Of course, we try to make through these different instruments tailor-made approach to every single project, which is especially important in the area of export financing, insurance, and also investments abroad. We try to stimulate also private participation through so-called added value principle. That means that we enter into a transaction up to 85% and require the private financiers or investors to be at least 15% participating in the project or financing. And of course, we also provide, should it be needed, multi-currency financing. Our financing facilities, as mentioned, are direct or through commercial or on-lending banks. That applies also to export financing. Means that in, let's say, regular times, we would normally, our loan portfolio would be 80 to 20 in terms of on-lending versus direct financing. While in crisis and when increased activity of the bank is required to enable liquidity support, investment support to companies, this share is a little bit different. So it goes in direction to 60 to 40. So in terms of direct 60 and 40 through on-lending. And when speaking about export structures, it is usual that we provide direct facility to, let's say, Ukrainian companies, investors who arrange a deal with the Slovenian exporter, or to provide this facility or financing through a Ukrainian commercial bank. And of course, in order to increase the volume of Slovenian exports and investments, especially in neighborhood countries, outside of the European Union and areas of special interest, these insurance facilities are provided which enable risk coverage. I will ask my colleague Christina to share a little bit more details in later on, but for this part of presentation, let me just stress that, of course, these facilities are available for the investors, for the exporters in Slovenia, and as well as for banks in investment or export countries, so Ukraine as well. As I mentioned, from March on, and as Mr. Germek said, from the first day of the declaration of the epidemic situation in Slovenia, we've changed or shifted our mode of operation from development to anti-crisis measures. We immediately enabled several facilities, and this means invented or implemented new facilities, insurance and financing, but also adapted existing facilities that are being provided directly or through commercial banks. And that was done in figures as shown on the screen. So approximately 600 million of financing facilities that were normally distributed through commercial banks were adapted in order to respond to needs of companies. So in terms of tenor, eligible costs, and so on. More importantly, we enabled more than 400 million of direct funding. I'm talking about for the time being. So in this half year, from March to September, we enabled this 400 million of additional direct facilities to Slovenian companies. And that resulted in around 350 million of approved loans. More than 3,000 companies requested information and our services. Around 400 companies were supported directly, others through commercial banks, and more importantly, also by means of insurance and reinsurance, we enabled 900 million of these facilities in order to support companies. So in a nutshell, I would sum up our response to crisis in 3 or 4 points. So we immediately allowed liquidity, address liquidity needs of Slovenian companies. That was mainly done by means of direct financing and also risk sharing with the financial intermediaries, but also through adjustment of insurance for exporters. Then this was done, of course, by ourselves, but as in the role of implementing partner. But I have to stress the importance of, and what was really shown in this case, very proactive cooperation with the ministries and in designing and harmonizing these measures, because in such circumstances one has to be very decisive, coordinated, and effective. So all this was done and couldn't be done with this harmonized and coordinated approach. And of course, we, in spite of our focus being the liquidity needs, addressing the liquidity needs to companies, we also prepared the so-called recovery measures, which would and will allow our companies to also address their investment needs, RBI needs, and so on. Because once, and I'm sure this crisis and health crisis and economic crisis will end, and we have to exit from this much better and better condition than that it made us through different limitations. One thing very important, being a member of the state member of the European Union, is the state aid regulation. All our financing is regulated by state aid rules, which of course doesn't allow much flexibility in terms of pricing conditions, collateral, and so on. And of course, all these volumes and instruments which I mentioned were done in compliance with regular state aid schemes, but also by means of usage of additional schemes which European Union enabled, and this was very valuable in order to address better the needs of companies. So, as you mentioned, we are a small country. We are also among our peers small development banks, but of course this allows us to be better responsive and also better flexible in providing these adapted instruments and schemes. You have in the presentation all detailed features of these programs which we enabled. I will not go into details in the interest of time, but nevertheless, just mention the headlines. So we mostly focused our loan facilities towards the liquidity needs, as mentioned. Then one of the main areas which Slovenia was heavily affected was tourism. So we, together with the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology, have a special loan fund, which enables companies in the tourism sector to use also this not only for investment needs, which was prior to this COVID-19 crisis, but also to liquidity needs. And that was proved to be very valuable because it enabled companies in tourism sector to obtain very long-term facilities, loan facilities at favorable interest rates, and thus somehow compensated the what was not received through receivables through sales of products and services. And as I mentioned, also the RDI, we have to look ahead and be very persuasive in this. So we enabled this RDI program, which is already in place and allows companies to carry out financing of research and development or investment projects. As time passes by, we also, at the beginning of the crisis, we saw the commercial banks were very reluctant to lend new loans to companies or to new customers. The state allowed and implemented the scheme which SID Banka also operates and covers up to 70 or 80% of the exposure of the new loan to the companies by commercial banks. And by means of our loans or funding, which is provided to banks and also through usage of this scheme, banks are now more flexible in terms of their activation to extend new loan facilities. I already mentioned the fund of funds. So this is a scheme which allows the usage of European funds that would otherwise be used as grants once and for all. And through this innovative scheme, which SID Banka operates, we use this 250 million of European funds that apply to Slovenia as a revolving facility, and this means that we provide even more loans at very favorable interest rates, less collateral, long tenors, and so on. And this fund was complemented by a crisis fund, which was also done in cooperation with the ministries and the government, and allowed us to provide 100 million of additional funding to companies. And this focuses very much to microloans, so to small and medium-sized companies, micro companies, and in the amount, as I mentioned, 100 million, which proved to be a very good response to their needs at the current situation. I would now kindly ask my colleague Christina to give you a little bit more detail about our Corona insurance and also some words about the guarantee scheme, with a focus also on the regular services that we provide in this area. Christina?
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you very much for the word. And as already presented, my name is Cristina Fortuna, and I work for Export Credit and Insurance Department. So for the other side of a SID bank, this is an ECA part. At the beginning, I would also like to welcome all the participants of the meeting, and I really hope that all the shared information will be good base for our future cooperation. Also, as presented, maybe I will briefly talk about all the products that we provide as an ECA, not just the Corona measures and maybe adjustments of existing products due to the Corona crisis. As said, the SID Bank on one hand is acting as an export and development bank, and on the other hand, we act as an ECA. In terms of ECA business, we provide insurance against non-marketable risk. These are commercial and non-commercial risk, which cannot be covered on the private market, and also for the risk which can be covered by European Union ECA according to EU regulation. as also said, all insurance activities are registered on separate account and not in the books of a SID bank. And our main mandate is to facilitate domestic export of goods and services according to, let's say, now we can talk about national interest and our outward investments. I can say that we actually provide quite typical ECA products. And the first one is export credit insurance. This is insurance for medium and long-term and short-term export transaction. And we also provide reinsurance of short-term export receivables in cooperation with private market. So in this field, we feel the market gap, so in cooperation with all the private insurers. We also provide insurance of outward investments. This is equity insurance, shareholders loan, and non-shareholders loan insurance. And what is more or less in current time, we see quite bigger demand is also providing cover for domestic risk. This is there are two types of products. This is insurance of bonds. These are, yeah, yes.
May I ask you to forward the presentation just because you have it in your control?
Yes, I'm talking about the products which were actually presented at the beginning, so I will go to the corona measures afterwards. Yes, these are the products for which I have already talked. So for the exporters and for the investors, and we also have products for the banks. So quite an different classification as I'm talking about. But nevertheless, so insurance of bonds, as I said, and insurance of working capital, these are two products through which we provide cover for domestic risk, but which is underlined, always underlined with a specific export transaction. So as I said, our mandate is to support export, and all our products need to serve to facilitate Slovenian export abroad. All products are also performed according to OECD and EU rules. We provide more or less cover on case-by-case basis, cover for individual export transactions, more or less for export of capital goods, for higher risk in terms of tenor, markets, amounts, and also concentration. By many banks, commercial banks, we can say that our products are recognized as a first-class insurance. So, and we are more or less proud on that. I think that I will move to corona products and to corona measures. I'm sorry for that. I will skip to this part of presentation. So, as a response to COVID crisis, we have also amended two existing products. This is, as I was talking, insurance of working capital loans and insurance of bonds, more or less in terms of easing the conditions. These were speaking in longer terms for working capital insurance, less requirements regarding the collaterals are needed. We have also implemented less restrictive conditions for recognition of the company as an exporter, etc. So for two products we have amended, but we have also launched two new products. One of them is insurance of advance payment, which enables cover against the non-payment of advance payment, which has to be paid to foreign suppliers for import of healthcare equipment needed for treatment of patients affected by COVID-19. I can say that this product was mainly used in the beginning of the crisis. Nowadays, we don't see quite a huge demand for it. And if there will be, we will, of course, support also the import of the needed equipment. According to change of temporary framework, EU temporary framework, we also provide reinsurance of temporary non-marketable risk. And at the moment, we can say that we have quite huge or rise in the new business through this product. And as we can say also now that this measure was by the EU was prolonged till the end of first half of the year in the next year. So we will provide reinsurance of temporary and non-marketable risk also till 30th of June in the next year. Besides these two amendments and two new products, we have also adjusted our insurance conditions. So through higher insurance coverage for exporters. And we have also implemented new national content policy, we can say. It's a different requirement for the Slovene component. Till the change, our requirement was 30 to 40% of Slovenian content in the export transaction, and we have now reduced it to 20%, and not for all products. And some products they do not have a condition of national content, but just we look the support through the national interest.
Mrs. Fortuna, I hate to interrupt you. I was really listening to what you're saying, but we are a little bit behind the schedule. You have 3 minutes to complete your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I will. Also, as colleague mentioned, so SID Bank also performs a Corona guarantee scheme. So there are two schemes, so I can say two products. So under the first scheme, commercial bank can obtain a state guarantee for deferred credit obligations for existing loans, which are approved to companies and individuals for up to 12 months. Total amounts of the guarantees is 200 million euros. And we can say that by the end of September, more than 58 million of euros in guarantees from the Republic of Slovenia have been issued. This is the first scheme. And the second scheme, under the second scheme, commercial bank can obtain state guarantee for new loans granted to companies which meet the certain conditions which are stated on the presentation. And the total amount of guarantees is 2 billion euros. And by middle of October, the total principal amount of loans which were guaranteed were 30 million euros. And the main goal of this second scheme is to provide additional liquidity to Slovene companies. This is quite briefly according for the measures, and I will put the word to Sasha to continue with the presentation, and I will also include in the conclusion part.
Thank you, Christina, and I will be really very brief. So other activities as well and programs are listed on the screen. So ranging from equity financing, financing of municipalities, SID Bank acting as a local advisory hub, and so on. We have a strong international cooperation as well. And in terms of what we are doing right now is, of course, preparing new instruments in order to address the current needs, as well as new internalization program, and also new financial engineering instruments in order to address transport sector. But on the same side, also new instruments for the usage of the next generation fund and the multi-annual framework from the European Union. If we focus very briefly on cooperation possibilities, unfortunately, we don't have instruments to promote Ukrainian exports to Slovenia because it's not within our mandates, but nevertheless, all the financing schemes and instruments which are mentioned are also applicable to companies which are incorporated in Slovenia, possibly also by Ukrainian shareholders. We have one instrument in place which could stimulate Ukrainian investments, and a special program which is amounted to 10 million euros, where these companies can obtain loans, favorable loans, in order to promote investments in Slovenia. In terms of what was mentioned, insurance and financing to promote exports and investment in Ukraine, there are several instruments in place. Our exposure is open and as listed on the screen. Current exposure as ECA is slightly above 70 million, and we have several projects under consideration. In terms of concrete cooperation, we are happy to have together with us today also the Ukraine Bank. We signed a memorandum MOU back in 2006. There are, of course, possibilities of bank-to-bank trade finance. We would be highly interested in cooperating also with the ECA by signing the same MOU, and of course look forward and ahead to our joint opportunities on the third market. So Slovenian and Ukrainian companies acting together with the help of authorities and our respective banks and institutions on the third markets. So that will be all from for this point from our side. Thank you, and I hope there will be some questions. Before I end, I also like to wish all good health, and I hope my pronunciation is good. Bажаю всім міцного здоров'я.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our colleagues and friends. I should say, I think this presentation is extremely profound and complex and has a lot of information to digest, first of all, for your Ukrainian peers, and also for our Ukrainian expert businesses who are viewing us with great attention. So now I would like to suggest how we will structure our further discussion. And unless there are some other proposals, I suggest we go forward like this. First, I think I will give the floor for our representatives of the Ukrainian Export Credit Agency and to Ukreksimbank immediately to ask questions if they wish to their Slovenian friends to reflect on the presentation. And I suggest that both Export Credit Agency and Ukreksimbank each field 2 questions. And the only thing I would ask if you could formulate the questions that could also be informative enough for the Ukrainian, let's say, exporters who watch our presentation. Then after that, I would suggest that the Ukrainian Credit Agency and Ukreksimbank would also very briefly comment, reflect on this model of export insurance and export financing that Slovenian colleagues present, and perhaps say a few words how the Ukrainian Export Credit Agency is developing. We are in the beginning of this road. And also as far as the Ukreksimbank is concerned, this is much more advanced, let's say, player. It has been one of the few Ukrainian commercial banks with a prime, let's say, international reputation that has worked with international financial institutions who were backing them up in support of indirect lending to Ukrainian business, including the export dimension. I think it will be all very interesting to our viewers. So now I would like to pass the floor to our colleagues in the Ukrainian Export Credit Agency, Ms. Larisa Lukovina, and after that, with a few questions, and then after that to the representatives Ukreksimbank. Please.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be in this meeting today. Yes, I would like to point out that our company have just started our activity in Ukraine, and currently also our goal is protect Ukrainian exporters against the risk of non-payment and financial losses too. That is why our main products are the insurance of foreign economic agreements, and that's why we today our HA insurers Ukraine exporters that sell their products in markets of Belarus and African Union. Insurance, second, our products, insurance of export credits. Now we are providing insurance of export credits with our strategic partner, Exim Bank, and we have had a few successful cases in this field. I'm also thanks you for privilege listening to your interesting presentation on insuring and crediting key products. We greatly appreciate your transparency in sharing your experience and views in the sphere where we are working together. Having watched this presentation, I see a few core areas for our cooperation. Your knowledge and expertise could be a big help in our consulting to our company. Now we are interested in matching our product with your product and European and integrated them in European environment. It's our opinion. Next, we're looking forward to cooperating in the areas of reinsurance contracts. We're talking about possibilities to take our risk now. And we would be grateful for sharing your experience in claim settlements and especially in debt collection procedure. Then we're also interested in providing mutual insurance program with SID Bank for our clients. And etc. That's why maybe it's really important for us to sign the memorandum between SID Bank and our ACA, and where we declare our goals and disclose more details in special letters in the memorandum, and special letters maybe after this our meeting, maybe this form of connection.
Mm-hmm. I think we would be only too happy to see that after our event,
yes,
something will come out in terms of specific cooperation project between the brother agencies in Slovenia
yes,
and,
yes,
and,
of course.
Ukraine, and I'm sure that
It's a very
Slovenia,
pleasure. Yes,
yes,
great.
and the Slovenian embassy is the right contact point for you to address,
yes,
to reach out to Ljubljana. And now I would like to pass the floor to Alexander and Sviatoslav from Ukreksimbank. Perhaps, gentlemen, you may have specific questions that can illustrate the experience of Slovenian SID Bank, or maybe you would like to comment on your experience for our business audience. Please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for nice presentation, and thank you for opportunity to speak here. In terms of our experience, we are Eximbank, and we always been involved in supporting exporters from Ukraine, facilitating trade of Ukrainian companies, both on export and import side. We were implementing different programs for support of export together with international financial institutions. We have strong record of experience with World Bank, especially on support of exporters. It was called several projects, export development programs. We have different programs with European Investment Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, dedicated to the development of DCFTA agreement, which we have between Ukraine and Europe. So, and in total, we are more focusing on dealing with Exim type of clients, let's call them. Of course, we are different institution to SID Bank. We are more of commercial institution with focus and mandate to support exporters and to facilitate trade. In terms of our experience with ECAs, we have more experience with international ECA with rather than with Ukrainian one, mostly because of the non-existence of such ECA before. Now, Ukrainian Export Credit Agency was established, and we are closely working with them, cooking different instruments, and I hope coming to the stage when we can announce some common transactions. Mostly we are, of course, trying to orient this mutual cooperation and support of SME type of clients, on basic products like supplier credit insurance. So let's see, I think it's premature to speak about some specific trades before we finalize them. What would be interesting for me to understand, because your presentation now, it's like already Mercedes which is running, but we are at the beginning stage. It would be interesting for us to hear how you started your business, at which instruments you were concentrated, which clients you were supporting at the beginning of your career as a bank, and how you moved from the beginning to the stage where you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Perhaps Sviatoslav Kuzmich would like to add anything. And before he may do, I would like to remind our business audience that the floor will be then, from then on, open for your questions. You can ask your questions at the chat window of this online event. Sviatoslav, do you have anything to add, to complement?
I just wanted to ask a question to our colleagues from SID Bank. It's related, again, it's probably a more technical type of question, but I was wondering, what is the maximum tenor of financing can be available for Ukrainian borrowers at the moment? And also quite specific question, if our colleagues can share with us, how significant was an impact of moving Ukraine from 7 to 6 OECD risk grade category on the financing rates and probably on risk premiums levels? Thank you.
Christina, will you address the second question? So regarding the classification and the premium rates for the insurance, please.
Yes. So as regards the premium rates, we need to follow to the minimum premium rates which are set by the OECD. So there is actually no room for any higher rates that can be applied when insuring specific export transactions. So in these terms, I can say that we follow minimum premium rates which are officially set. This is regarding the premium rates. Maybe regarding the first question and the cooperation with the new established ECA in Ukraine, we can say that we are, of course, interested in signing the MOU. Mostly in terms to strengthen cooperation through the exchange of information on economic and commercial matters that would enhance cooperation between enterprises. And in case of any common projects, so in which the Slovenian and Ukrainian enterprises will act on the third markets, we can then also enter into the individual reinsurance agreement through which we can take the part of the risk which applies to the export of Slovenian goods or services. These are two possibilities of cooperation, but as said, in the first phase, we can, of course, sign the MOU.
And if I may complement Christina with regard to the first question, so the tenor of financing is also linked to the OECD arrangement. So for the time being, maximum of 10 years.
Yes, correct.
Thank you very much. Sviatoslav, do you have more questions or can we proceed?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, definitely we can proceed.
Wonderful. Excellent. So once again, I remind our audience that there is now possibility to ask questions, if any. And once our participants are making up their minds, I would like to ask a few questions of my own, and also to make a comment in terms of the potential of cooperation in terms of ensuring joint export operations of Slovenia and Ukraine. I would like to emphasize that, like Slovenia, perhaps, Ukraine is also actively building up its own network of free trade arrangements with third countries that would build up on our EU-Ukraine deep comprehensive free trade area. With time, we will have more and more opportunities for both for Slovenian and Ukrainian exporters to operate on third countries markets, starting from Israel and to Turkey, EFTA countries, and beyond. It's a slow process, but I'm very proud to say that the Ukrainian Ministry of Economic Development, together with Export Promotion Office, are doing their best to do that. Opportunities to discuss between the SID Bank and ECA, as well as the Ukreksim Bank, you know, that this opportunity is fixed in the Memorandum of Understanding. That's one thought to digest. And I have a question, perhaps not as an expert in terms of credit insurance and export financing. My question is to the SID Bank colleagues. When you look back into the history of development of the SID Bank, what can you say? What was the key enabler in the government regulation in Slovenia that really helped you to shoot up and to start operating, you know, at the top of your capacity, helping, how to say, Slovenian exporters? Can you identify a few key blocks in government regulation that really helped you to start flying, so to say?
I guess, am I being heard?
Yes, you were lost for a second, but now
Okay.
I hear you well.
Okay. So thank you for the interesting question. So as I mentioned, we were established back in 1992. So that was a special law which enabled us a very wide range of activities. And prior to entry to the European Union, of course, we were able to do literally many things. And with our becoming a member of the European Union required adaptation of several our activities. So we had to, among other things, exclude our, let's say, short-term insurance to a special company, which was in our ownership until the last year. In this respect, we had to arrange our activities and model of business with the regulation of the European Union. But I could comment that it was a very good start from the beginning, that we were enabled. So for 20 years now, 25 years now, we set up very good pillars of our activities, and we just had to adapt them to meet the requirements of the European regulation. But all the basis was done back in those years. And in terms of course, now as we are formally a development bank, we also have a special law. I would also repeat that this law, it is very important that law which regulates our activities, which specifies the mandates, the guarantee of the Republic of Slovenia and so on, other stipulation of the law, and also stipulates, let's say, somehow special status of the bank in comparison to other banks in Slovenia and institutions as well. It is very important that you have very good pillars from the beginning, and of course that this law which stipulates your activities is written in a way that is long term, because you all know that development banks and ECAs are among the oldest institutions in the world, and they need the regulated area of activities. But you have to do it in a way that will allow you to be there and provide services to the economy also in 50 years time and so on. So you have to very carefully set up what is the mandate, what are the relations with the state, how you monitor the fulfillment of mandates and so on. And this is, together with the knowledge and experience, I think the most important combination of factors that contributes to the successful implementation of the activities. But also, let's say, as I mentioned, the crisis, this set of regulation allowed us also to respond very quickly in terms of instruments and financing facilities, in not only to fulfill the development mandate, but also crisis response for the economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelman. I see that our audience is not responding with questions, and I think I understand why, because the material is very rich in substance, and it makes everyone to think hard first how to, about this experience coming from Slovenia. And second, that I think I'll be frank with you, we understand that it will be extra difficult to compete with the Slovenian exporters who are armed with such excellent instruments to support them back at home. So with this, I think I will now thank everyone. First, our colleagues from Slolex for their very valuable and expert comments. We really ask Slovenian colleagues to share this presentation with us, with the UBTA Expert Promotion Office. With your permission, the presentation will be made available on the websites of the Ukrainian Export Credit Agency, UBTA, and the Expert Promotion Office, so that your experience and your expertise can be taken, can be used for the good cause. And last but not least, we do hope that our event will how to say, electrify both Ukrainian and Slovenian colleagues to talk to each other and to see how they can at least co-finance and co-support joint Slovenian investments in Ukraine in order to reach out advantageous location in the crossroads in Eastern Europe, and also our emerging bilateral network of free trade agreements that would allow both Slovenia and Ukraine to take advantage of new opportunities. We are working very hard on this, and this is one of the things that UBTA also is involved. So with this, I would like, at least on behalf of the UBTA, to thank you for your time, for your expertise. And I would also like to pass the floor to Ukraine, Bank, and the Slovenian Embassy to say farewell words. If no one wants to say, once again, I would like to conclude this very interesting event, and we do look forward to, if there are initiatives or suggestions from the side of the SID Bank or Slovenian Embassy to build up on this lively exchange, we are more than welcome. We are more than happy to assist. So once again, thank you very much. And let's stay healthy and let's keep in touch.
Keep in touch.
Thank you.